What if one day you bought a villa at an unbelievably low price, thinking you just scored the deal of a lifetime, like a pie falling straight out of the sky, only to move in and, on the very first night, hear unexplained footsteps echoing down the empty hallway? Your child wakes up screaming, claiming there's an invisible friend standing in the corner of their bedroom. Even you, waking up in the middle of the night, find yourself pinned to the bed by some unseen force you can't fight off. Wouldn't you start to wonder if your new home has already been taken over by something you can't explain? This isn't a scene from a horror movie. This is one of the most famous paranormal cases in American history, the Amityville Horror. The house at the center of this story sits in Amityville, a suburban town on Long Island, New York. From the outside, it looks just like any other home, peaceful, elegant, and carrying that classic small-town American charm. But this seemingly ordinary White House shocked the nation in the 1970s, becoming the inspiration for countless documentaries, news reports, novels, and movies. The story begins in the early hours of November 13th, 1974. At 3:15 a.m., the Amityville Police Department received a frantic phone call. On the other end was a man, his voice trembling as he stammered, "Please, hurry. Someone's been shot at my house. 112 Ocean Avenue. They're all dead." At first, the dispatcher thought it had to be some kind of prank. After all, Ocean Avenue was a wealthy part of town, known for its safety. Nothing like this had ever happened there. Still, 2 patrol cars were sent to check it out. When officers arrived at 112 Ocean Avenue, what they found was far more horrifying than they expected. The front door was unlocked. As they slowly pushed it open, a heavy smell of blood hit them. The living room light was still on, newspapers scattered across the floor. Upstairs in the bedrooms, 6 bodies were lying neatly in their beds. Each victim had been shot in the back of the head. Blood had soaked deep into the sheets. The dead were the DeFeo family, 50-year-old father Ronald DeFeo Sr., 43-year-old mother Louise, and their 4 children, 18-year-old Billy, 16-year-old Mark, 13-year-old John, and 12-year-old Dawn. The man who made the call was the only survivor, 23-year-old eldest son, Ronald Jr. He was sitting on the front steps, wearing a blood-stained shirt, his head in his hands, mumbling over and over, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me." He told police he'd been at a bar the night before, and when he came home in the early morning hours, he found his family murdered. He insisted the killer must have been a stranger who broke in. He even claimed he'd seen strange footprints in the yard. But soon, police started noticing something strange. There were no signs of forced entry on the doors or windows. Nothing valuable was missing from the bedrooms either, so it didn't look like a robbery gone wrong. And what was even stranger, every one of the 6 victims was lying neatly in their beds, with no signs of a struggle. It was as if they had all been killed in their sleep without ever having a chance to fight back. With so many questions left unanswered, investigators began pressing Ronald harder and harder. Finally, 3 days later, he broke. He suddenly changed his story and confessed that he was the one who had murdered his family. He claimed that on the night of the killings, he heard strange voices inside his room. The voices circled around him like some kind of chant, whispering over and over, "They're all lying to you. You have to kill them." Driven mad by those voices, Ronald grabbed his father's rifle, started in his parents' bedroom, and one by one executed every member of his family. When the case went to trial, Ronald continued to plead with the judge, crying that he hadn't done it on his own. He said he could hear things in the walls talking to him, and that it was those things that forced him to commit the murders. At the time, people dismissed his words as nothing more than a desperate excuse. The judge believed Ronald had killed his family out of greed in order to inherit their wealth, and the so-called voices in the walls were just a fabricated cover story. So in September of 1975, Ronald was convicted of 6 counts of murder and sentenced to life in prison in New York. Newspapers across the country reported on the horrific killings, but no one paid attention to Ronald's bizarre claims, at least not until a year later when another family moved into the house. In July of 1976, George and Kathy Lutz, newlyweds with 3 kids, came to Amityville looking for a bigger home. Their budget was tight, but when they saw the Dutch colonial house at 112 Ocean Avenue, They were tempted. It was over 2,000 square feet, had a big yard, and the price was only $80,500, nearly half the price of similar homes in the area. The real estate agent didn't hide the house's history. She told them straight up about the murders, explaining that was the reason it was so cheap. George and Kathy hesitated when they heard this, but after watching their kids laugh and run around in the yard, they clenched their teeth and signed the contract. Kathy told herself she was an atheist. She didn't believe in ghosts. She thought, as long as we clean the place up, it'll be fine. But George wasn't so sure. He had this uneasy feeling that something bad might happen. So about a week before moving in, he invited Father Ralph Pecoraro, a local priest from Holy Cross Church, to come bless the house. Father Ralph was in his 60s. In all his years, he had never encountered anything supernatural. But as soon as he stepped into one of the upstairs bedrooms, something strange happened. He was about to take out his crucifix when he suddenly heard a cold, disembodied voice behind him, clear as day. "Get out!" The priest froze. He thought maybe he was imagining it. He turned around. No one was there. Brushing it off, he continued with the blessing. But just a few minutes later, he felt a powerful shove on his back, almost knocking him to the ground. Again, he dismissed it, thinking maybe he had just stumbled. But the moment he stepped outside the house, his eyes began burning painfully, as if filled with sand. Later that evening, he developed a high fever and was bedridden for 3 days. After that, Father Ralph warned George, "There's something bad in that house. You and your family shouldn't live there." But by then, George and his family had already put down the deposit. There was no turning back. On August 18, 1976, the Lutz family moved into 112 Ocean Avenue with their furniture and belongings. The first few days felt perfectly normal. The kids played in the yard, Kathy unpacked and organized the rooms, George sorted tools down in the basement, and at night the family sat together in the living room watching TV. Nothing seemed unusual. It was just like any other home. The changes started on the 5th night. At 3:15 in the morning, George suddenly woke up. Not from an alarm, not from the kids making noise. He just opened his eyes for no reason at all. He looked at the clock. It was exactly 3:15. The time immediately sent a chill through him, because that was the exact time Ronald had murdered his family in the very same house. From that night on, George would wake up every single night at 3:15, as if something invisible was forcing him. And each time he woke, the bedroom felt freezing cold, like he was lying inside an ice cellar. Even stranger were the things happening around the house. The kitchen knife Kathy left on the counter would mysteriously show up the next day on the coffee table in the living room. The kids' toy cars, though packed away in their boxes the night before, would somehow be scattered across the staircase by morning. Even George's toolbox wasn't spared. Whenever he opened it, he'd find the wrenches and screwdrivers arranged into odd circular patterns, like some kind of strange symbol. Then the children began saying unsettling things. George's 7-year-old son claimed he had an invisible friend who sat on his bed every night, talking to him and even tickling his feet. His 5-year-old daughter was terrified, saying she saw a woman dressed in white standing silently in her closet, staring at her. Kathy thought it was just the kids struggling to adjust to the new house. The most terrifying moment happened on the 23rd night. George had been working late and was driving home when he noticed a dark figure standing in the second-floor window of his house. He immediately thought it was a burglar, jumped out of the car, and ran toward the house. But when he looked up again at the window, his blood ran cold. The figure was tall, with a pointed head and glowing red eyes. It looked like a pig, but it was standing upright, watching him. George rushed inside, ran upstairs, but every room was empty. The windows were locked and the figure was gone. Then as he came back down to the living room, he saw Kathy curled up on the couch, pale and trembling. "Did you see that pig man?" she asked in a shaking voice. Just when they thought it might have been their imagination, they noticed something on the floor, an unknown green, slimy substance seeping through the wood. From that day forward, the Lutz family could no longer bear to stay inside the house. During the day, they'd spend time at friends' homes. At night, they only dared to remain in their own home for a few hours before leaving again. The kids grew more withdrawn, Kathy developed insomnia, and George was plagued by hallucinations, constantly feeling as though someone was standing behind him, watching. Finally, on September 14th, 1976, the 28th day after moving in, George turned to Kathy and said, "We're leaving, right now, and we're never coming back." That night, George and Kathy grabbed only a few boxes of clothes, left all the furniture behind, carried their sleeping children to the car, and fled 112 Ocean Avenue for good. After the Lutz family fled, they shared their terrifying experiences with friends, and soon the story reached the ears of local paranormal investigators. Among them, the most famous were Ed and Lorraine Warren. In October of 1976, the Warrens brought a team to 112 Ocean Avenue to conduct a week-long paranormal investigation. They set up electromagnetic field detectors, audio recorders, and night vision cameras throughout the house, and even brought in a medium to assist with the investigation. On the third day, the EMF detector suddenly went off. In one area of the living room, the electromagnetic field measured more than 10 times the normal level. That kind of intensity usually only appears near high-voltage power lines. In his report, Ed Warren wrote that finding such strong EMF activity inside an ordinary home was likely a sign of non-human entities being present. The recording devices also captured strange sounds. Around 3:15 in the morning, a faint whisper appeared on tape. It sounded like a woman crying, but at the same time like a child speaking. The medium, after only an hour inside the house, broke down emotionally. With fear in her eyes, she told the Warrens there were many tormented souls trapped there, and something else, something evil. She said it was not human, not even a ghost, but something far more ancient. The Warrens' investigation made the Lutz family's story seem even more believable. In 1976, they met writer Jerome Bruner and together decided to turn the experiences into a book. Bruner spent 6 months interviewing George and Kathy, Father Ralph, and the Warrens themselves. Finally, in 1977, the Amityville Horror was published. The book caused an immediate sensation. In its first year, it sold over 3 million copies, was translated into more than a dozen languages, and hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. The story described in vivid detail the terrifying events the Lutz family went through, from waking up at 3:15 a.m., to the mysterious green slime, to the horrifying pigman figure. Every detail read like a gripping novel, yet on the very first page, it was labeled, based on a true story. Just as the public was starting to believe the Amityville haunting was real, skepticism began to surface. In 1979, Ronald's defense attorney, William Weber, held a press conference claiming the Lutz family story was a complete fabrication. Weber revealed that after fleeing the house in 1976, the Lutz family had come to him asking how they could make money off a haunting. At the time, George and Kathy were drowning in debt and saw the story as their way out. Weber said he helped them make up many of the details, even admitting that the infamous Pigman was his own idea. As for George waking up at 3:15 every night, Weber said that too was invented, just to make the story scarier. That claim shocked the public. Soon, people began digging into the Lutz family's background and discovered that before moving into 112 Ocean Avenue, they were already nearly $100,000 in debt, and the royalties from the Amityville Horror conveniently wiped all of that away. What raised even more suspicion was the couple's inconsistent testimony across different interviews. For example, George first said he only saw the pig-like figure once, but later changed his story, claiming he saw it 3 times. Kathy, in one interview, said the strange green slime only appeared in the living room, but in the book, it was written that the slime was also found in the bedrooms and smeared across the walls. When confronted, George and Kathy firmly denied making anything up. Both sides stood their ground, and with no solid evidence to prove who was telling the truth, the mystery remained unresolved. Ironically, the controversy didn't make the Amityville legend fade away. It only made it even more famous. In 2003, the house was sold to its third owner, who deliberately changed the address from 112 to 108, hoping to avoid curious onlookers. But it wasn't long before neighbors claimed they saw the new family hurriedly moving out in the middle of the night, like they were fleeing in fear. Some even said they overheard the woman of the house whisper, "We're never coming back." Yet this family has never publicly spoken about their time there, leaving everyone to wonder what they really experienced. To this day, 112 Ocean Avenue remains a forbidden place in Amityville. Local real estate agents rarely recommend the house. Pedestrians go out of their way to avoid passing it, and at night no one dares to walk nearby. Online discussions, however, have never stopped. Some people upload videos claiming to have captured shadowy figures near the house. Others pick apart the Lutz family's testimony, searching for holes in their story. And some even organize haunted house expeditions, desperate to get inside, though every attempt has been shut down by the current owners.